Joining us now, Susan Del Percio, Republican strategist and MSNBC political analyst, and Tim Miller, writer-at-large at The Bulwark and former communications director for Jeb Bush's 2016 campaign. He is also an MSNBC political analyst. It's great seeing you both. So, Tim, you're out with a new piece where you say that J.D. Vance wants to take America to a dark place. What do you mean by that?
Well, I'm just echoing what he said about how Donald Trump wanted to take the white working class to a dark place. You know, back in 2016, J.D. Vance sounded a lot like me. We were both in the Never Trumper crowd. He was around tables like this on MSNBC. He was on Hardball with Chris Matthews talking about how he thought Donald Trump was guilty of sexual assault way back then, even before the E. Jean Carroll trial. So, he wrote for The Atlantic about how Donald Trump is an opioid of the masses, and that what he wants to do is take the white working class to a dark place by making them angry at perceived threats, such as immigrants, but not actually solving their underlying problems. And I thought that that was very astute and correct of J.D. Vance right then, but instead of trying to win Trump over to that point of view and to saying we need to address underlying problems, J.D. just is now doing exactly what Donald Trump did back then for his own gain. So
do you think that that is a truthful evolution of his, or just more of a political?
I think it's authentically ambitious. I think he's true to his ambition to want to be successful. But no, look, Donald Trump hasn't changed. Like this idea that J.D. misunderstood Trump or didn't know. It's very easy to understand Donald Trump. He's been the same guy since the 1980s. And so I think maybe J.D., the best you could argue is that he thinks by getting in there, he could help bring some serious policy heft to that. I will say in the Senate, he did work with Tammy Baldwin and some Democrats on some populist economic issues. But he also has gone along with all of Trump's conspiracy craziness that has been the opioid that he warned about, for the rhetorical opioid for these white working class voters.
Susan, how do you see the Trump decision to get Vance? What is the statement that he's making with that choice, someone who is, in a way, a carbon copy in many things?
Well, I think Trump is saying, I want a real legacy. I want MAGA to live on. Things have changed and evolved for Trump, especially after the shooting on Saturday. And he's looking towards being stamped into history, not just for his time in office, but I think for the future. But to what Tim said, J.D. Vance is an opportunist. He's moved around to do whatever is in his best interest, but he's smart. And Jose, what scares me is that he, although new to government, he's only been elected for 18 months, he understands policy, and I think he'll go to places, if elected, that Trump doesn't care about in government and start making fundamental changes.
Like what? What do you mean?
So he can go into some regulatory areas that maybe Trump doesn't care about drilling, or what's going on in a specific state. He can play in on policy making at a mid-level that has a huge effect because Donald Trump doesn't care. He can go in at DOJ and start looking at offices around the country. Donald Trump only cares about a couple, usually the ones that are investigating him. But he could start making those kind of changes that will have long-term effects.
Tim, what about Nikki Haley? We saw her at the end of at the end of the primary season, kind of really go a lot harder against Trump. Now she's speaking tonight.
Yeah, that's disappointing, isn't it? But it's kind of what we've come to expect of Nikki Haley, and she has been on the on-again, off-again train with Trump also since 2016. She also, like J.D. Vance, she also sounded like me back in 2016. So, no, she's speaking tonight, I think, because she wants to keep her viability open. I think that Nikki Haley is mistaken about where the party's going. I think Susan is correct, that the party is going down a MAGA path even after Trump, and that J.D. Vance is a more natural heir to that. I think that Nikki hopes to fight that out, kind of between MAGA without Trump and more traditional Republicanism in 2028 or 2032. And the only way to stay viable for that is to endorse Trump. So I think that's why she's doing it.
And do you think, Susan, there is a role or a space for Nikki Haley in 2028 or anywhere else?
Well, we have to see what happens in 2024. Right now, I think Tim is right. We have to look at her as, she's thinking of herself in 2028. Is there a role? If Trump loses, there's more of a role, because then at least she wouldn't have to jump off of MAGA and a Trump office. Plus, she wouldn't probably have to run against J.D. Vance. But that's 2028. Right now, she sold out, so she can be viable. But I think she and Ron DeSantis being invited last minute to the convention was part of an overall theme that Donald Trump wanted to soften the edges a little bit and say, okay, you were my enemy, but come on now, because he knows they won't pull a Ted Cruz at the convention. They will fall in line.
And so, Tim, this is, I mean, just of all the things, like Ron Johnson, the senator, delivered a speech on Monday in which he called the Democratic Party a clear and present danger to America. And then he actually told our colleague, Amna Nawaz, that the wrong speech was loaded into the teleprompter. ¿Qué pasó?
That's an oopsie. That's what we call that up here, Jose. Here's the thing, the only thing that's actually important about that, besides just being really embarrassing for Ron Johnson, is the convention last night didn't really have a clear message, which wasn't great for Trump, but it also didn't have the scary thing that I was worried about, which was a lot of waving of the bloody shirt, calling for vengeance, calling the other side a clear and present danger, tying Joe Biden to that horrible assassin. We didn't see that last night, and that's good for everybody. That's good for the country, and so I'm glad that it was a mistake that was in the Ron Johnson speech.
Susan, any thoughts on that?
No, and that is a good point. But to the campaign's credit, they really did put the word out on Sunday to the speakers. Don't change your speeches. We don't want to go that way. Some veered off, but that's not surprising. You know, like a Marjorie Taylor Greene would do something like that. But I agree. I am grateful that there wasn't the violent rhetoric that could have been out there.
Hey there, MSNBC fans. I'm Luke Russert, and be sure to join me, Rachel Maddow, Jen Psaki, Lawrence O'Donnell, Steve Kornacki, Joy Reid, and many more September 7th in Brooklyn, MSNBC Live Democracy 2024. Click on the link for ticket information. We will see you there.